So hello, I'm going to be talking about the Ecology Resources Design Framework, which was developed by Rosemary Luckin. She couldn't make it today, so I'm Katerina. I'm going to be running through it. So first I'll give you a kind of short 5-minute overview of what it's about. And basically what the framework does, it's a methodology for mapping out and modeling what the learner's context is. And then based on that, developing technology that can assist the learner tap into the different resources in the context. So one key thing about how context is conceptualized is that the learner doesn't move between different contexts. The learner carries their context with them. So even though they might be in a classroom kind of learning about something, the resources outside of that classroom, say their parents or friends or internet resources, are also part of their context within that learning experience. Stop me if you have any questions as I'm going along. So you can see this is quite a messy diagram. It's meant to represent all the complexity of the different resources that are present in the learner's context. And the model is based on Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. So the idea is that all these resources are available to the learner, but the learner can't necessarily make use of them effectively as they are at the moment. So what we do is trying to map out what those relationships between the resources are, and how can the use of technology or the development of new technology improve those relationships, those connections, so that the learner can make use of the resources more effectively based on the learning goal. So what the framework does, it models the learner's context based on identifying the different resources in the context and then grouping them into different categories. So knowledge and skills, that represents the learning goal, what it is that the learning experience is about. The tools and people might be teachers, parents, online resources, and then the environment in which the learning takes place. Now another critical concept is that of filters. So there might be constraints in the learner's access to those resources. For example, curriculum might be a filter to the knowledge. So it's very important to identify what those filters are and what the relationships between them are, so that maybe developing a technology will mean finding ways of reducing or getting rid of those filters. So the framework is based on 3 phases. So phase 1 is very open-ended. It consists of 6 steps, and it's important again to point out these are iterative, so it's not like you go through step 1 and then you're finished with it. It's a process of going through the data again and again to kind of elaborate on the model as much as possible. So in phase 1, you start off with brainstorming the potential resources, and that is meant to be as unfocused as possible. So to give you an example, one of the projects we're applying this framework to is teenagers learning about energy use. So when we did the initial kind of step 1 to brainstorm what resources are available, we didn't focus necessarily on energy. So we got them to do photo diary studies. This is an example of them. So you can see all the stuff in there isn't necessarily to do with energy, but then we revisited that in terms of energy use. So we can pick out all the kind of richness of the resources available to the learner. Now step 2 is one of the most important ones, is specifying what it is that the learning goal should be, and how can we motivate the learner to engage in that experience. Step 3 is, like I said, categorizing resource elements based on those 3 categories, identifying what the filters are. Then step 5, identifying what the learner brings to that learning experience. So it could be their conceptions, their motivations, their interests. And then step 6, you recognize that from Vygotsky's work, the idea of more able partners, and that's not necessarily a person, it could be a resource. What are the resources that are relevant to that learning goal, and how is it that we can tap into them? So then phase 2, once we've developed the initial model of the context, is identifying what the relationships are between those elements within the context. And then based on that, in phase 3, we develop the scaffolds and the adjustments. So how can the technology be used to mediate those, change those relationships in order to support learning? And again, important to point out, this isn't a kind of, one step follows through to the last, and then you're done. It's a kind of cyclical process. Does that make sense as a short introduction? Yeah. So we move on to the activity. I'm going to kind of split it into 3 parts, 10 minutes on each. So, like I said, the first in the first phase, in the first step, we really want it to be open-ended, which is not what we can do now. We have to kind of focus on specific learning experiences that we've had. So we think of all the learning experiences that we had with MOOCs and write short scenarios of when we might access that information, when we might engage with that course. And it's important to look over a period of time because the learning experience isn't static, the context isn't static. So we can look over a period of 1, 2, 3 weeks and see how those resources, that kind of context of use might change. Think about the online tools that we might use, and also think about the broader context, so what are the people, things, activities that might relate to the course indirectly. Does that make sense?
When you say a scenario, can you just explain a bit?
So just short snippets of what when you might be engaging with the MOOC, and what's going on around you, and who else might be involved.
So this is sort of a narrative of our own experience. Just
so very short kind of stories.
So memories of our engagement in MOOCs and what happened over a short period of time.
Yeah, so maybe 2, 3 sentences for each instance. But like I said, make it over a period, so not just one. See, how it changes over 1 week, the second week, the third week. So bring in more elements, more resources.
But the scenarios, using your own experiences to plan what you might.
Well, I mean that's why it doesn't work that well, because you would kind of see how it unfolds, and you wouldn't necessarily do it retrospectively. So if we think to our experiences of using MOOCs, but think back to the first week, maybe the second week, third week, rather than as a whole, is what I'm trying to say.
So first, at this point, we're not designing anything yet.
Not at all, but
we're just reflecting on our experience and trying to capture key incidents from our own experience with MOOCs and describe them, yes?
Yeah, the point of this phase 1 is to identify all the resources in the environment that relate to that learning experience. So like I said, in our example of teenagers' energy use, that was kind of doing a photo diary study and seeing all the different things that are in their environment. We can't do that very easily now, sitting down in a room. So we do it retrospectively and thinking about our experience over 2, 3 weeks of using MOOC.
We could think about it in relation to our own MOOC that we're planning.
Exactly, it hasn't happened yet. This is a retrospective reflection.
Thinking about the MOOCs we know about, and thinking about the one we're trying to plan, we can think in terms of the ecology of resources that might be relevant to the one we're trying to plan.
Yes, no, that would work. I mean, the main purpose is to think broad, think about all the different things, not just the thing that's online or the communication online.
Yeah, exactly.
So are we only talking about first-hand experience? Are we not talking about indirect experience?
Well, whatever would work for the activity to do. I mean, if there's no first-hand experience, then
I think we should just start doing the exercise rather than talking about it, and you can move around and help people out, because just
How long?
10 minutes.